Hey, Ron Saetermoe here with Wise Coaching, WIISE coaching.com with another podcast about qualifying for Kona. And of course, they don't call it Kona anymore. It used to be synonymous with Kona. And now, since COVID, the Ironman World Championships has been split between Nice and Kona. And a lot of debate about that. But be that as it may, we don't call it Kona anymore. And you might think, why would you do a video on qualifying for Kona when there's not that many people that are actually able to do it? Well, the fact is, I didn't think that I would ever get to Kona either. So it may not be far out of reach, as far out of reach as you think it might be. So keep it in mind. Keep that as one of your lofty goals, as I wrote about earlier. And I'm going to tell you how to get there. So, first of all, a little history on the Ironman World Championships. The very first Ironman was in Hawaii on the island of Oahu back in 1978, and there were only a handful of athletes there. I forget what the number is, 17 or something. But in 1979, it grew by a couple of people. But by 1982, which was the last time they had it there, it had grown quite a bit. It had a couple of hundred. And actually, in 1982, there were two races. There was one on the island of Oahu, and then later in the fall, there was one on the island of Hawaii in the town of Kona. That's why we call it Kona, because it's been there since 1982. And again, since COVID, it's not really referred to as Kona anymore. It's just the Ironman World Championships, which is a bit of a shame. Anyway, moving on. So back in the day, back in my day, I should say, and I would say that doing the race is certainly not easy at all. Doing the race anytime back in the very first time back in 1978, very difficult thing to do. However, as the years progressed and more people wanted to get in, it became very difficult to qualify for Kona. And by the time it got around, I got around to it. My first time was in doing an Ironman was in 2008. It was very difficult to qualify for Kona. A lot of people wanted to get in, and there weren't that many slots. So it was very, very difficult. In the beginning, there wasn't even any qualifying required, but eventually you needed to qualify, and it was very hard. Now today, and again, this is a change that Ironman has made. There are roughly 5,000 slots split between the men and the women. So there are roughly 2,500 slots for women, roughly 2,500 for men. This year, this being 2024, the men's race will be in Kona. The women's race will be in Nice. And there's roughly 2,500 spots between them. And this isn't a sexist thing, but it's a lot easier for women to get in than it is for men. It's just the way it is. But it's also easier for the men because there's a total of 2,500 spots. When I started racing it, there was about 2,000. So, it is what it is. And we move on. So, qualifying in another Ironman event is generally the way that people get in. Men these days pretty much have to qualify at another full Ironman event. There used to be a handful of 70.3s that you could qualify at. The one in Hawaii, the Hanu event, which was actually my favorite triathlon of any distance, was a good place to qualify because you only had to do a half Ironman event to qualify for an Ironman, but that has since gone away. Now, there are quite a few 70.3s that women could qualify at, and you really need to look at the website to check those out. But if I were a woman and I were trying to qualify for Ironman, that's probably where I would look first. The number of spots in each age group depends on the number of racers in each age group. So, for example, if you're a man and you're in that 40 to 44, which is, one of the sweet spots, there may literally be 300 or 400 men in that age group trying to qualify for, whatever, 6 or 8 slots. So very difficult to do. In my age group now, I've aged up, I'm in an older age group from when I started. I'm in the 65 to 69 age group. Chances are there's only going to be one slot, so I'm going to need to win my age group to get in. Still very difficult to do, but frankly, it's easier than trying to get one of the 6 or 8 spots if I was 40 or 44. But every age group for every qualifying race has at least one spot. So in some sense, it's easier to get in as you get older. There are fewer spots, but there are fewer racers as well. So, if you don't get in, this year, just wait a few years and you get older and it'll be easier for you to get in. Okay. So what does it take to qualify? First of all, it's hard work no matter what. Doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman, if you're trying to qualify as 70.3 or full. It's a lot of hard work to qualify for those spots. You're going to have to make sacrifices to qualify. And I remember the old business consulting guy, famous guy by the name of Tom Peters. He talked about, if you want your daughter to perform in the Olympics, to qualify and perform in the Olympics, they're going to have to make a lot of sacrifices. That means not being a normal kid, not, having a lot of friends, not doing a lot of things that their friends do. So you're going to have to make some sacrifices. That means, personal sacrifices. Maybe sometimes your vacations and days off are going to be, those days will be sacrificed for training. So you've got to be prepared to do that. Make sure your family is on board with that as well. Obviously, you've got to be consistent with your training. As I've mentioned many times before, my goal is to train 7 days a week. And I do that pretty well. I'd say that, probably, 45 to 50 weeks a year, I'm able to train 7 days a week. So that's pretty consistent. And in order to get there, you're probably going to have to do the same. Avoiding injury. Injury isn't just an accident. Injuries can be prevented. I talk about that quite a bit, especially as you get older. You can avoid injury by doing all the stuff that we know that we should do: foam rolling, mobility work, stretching, starting out easy. All of those things are important to stay injury free. And then a little luck can't hurt. Hey, take the luck whenever you can. I've missed a Kona slot one year when I went to Ironman Lake Placid. I didn't have a good race. I finished 8th. I did not go to the roll-in, and it rolled right by me, and some guy that finished 20-something ended up getting that spot. So had I gone, I would have been lucky and gotten in for a 6th time. So do your homework on the races that you're considering to qualify at. First of all, choose races that suit your strengths. I've talked about this before, so if you're a strong swimmer, try to find a race that doesn't require a wetsuit, that's in open water. Maybe the ocean where there's lots of waves and chop. So a strong swimmer is going to favor that. A strong cyclist is going to favor, really hilly bike courses. That way, you'll be able to, perform well on the bike. Same thing with a run. A hilly run course might suit you better if you're a strong runner. Another thing to do is check previous race results. And this really applies to races all around the world, because you'll see it at different races. There'll be like a huge group of really top athletes. For example, this isn't an Ironman race, but here in California, Oceanside 70.3 has got a really, really deep field. So if you were trying to qualify, for example, for New Zealand 70.3 Worlds this year, and you tried to do it at Oceanside, you really got your work cut out for you. So take a look at the previous race results, take a look at the times for each event, swim, bike, run, see how you might stack up, and then check the other racers. If you don't know them, look up their race results. And the other thing to do is check out coachcox.co.uk. He's got a great website that gives you a lot of ideas on how to qualify for Kona and tons of data. So check that out. Ways to qualify. The main way that people qualify is to earn a slot. So, as I mentioned before, the 40 to 44 age group slot may have, six qualifying slots. If you finish 1 through 6, you automatically get that. You've automatically qualified for the Ironman World Championships. And just as I mentioned with my Lake Placid experience, you might catch a roll down slot. So go to the awards, go to the roll down after the race. And if you finished, 7th or 8th in that example, go by all means, because the top 6 guys may not take those spots. It may roll very deep. So it really makes sense to go to the roll down if you really want to go to the World Championships. They still have the legacy program where if you race 12 times or more, you can earn a legacy spot. You can buy your way in. There's lotteries or not lotteries, but auctions that you can bid your way into. I know it used to be just crazy numbers. $40,000, $50,000 would be the bid that would, earn that spot. I don't know if it's that high anymore, but that's another way to check it out. Executive challenge is another way to do it. If you're an executive at a company, and again, check the website on this. It'll give you all the rules and regulations on that. But that's another way to get in. And there are others that they mention on the website. So there are ways to get in. But I had finally decided, I tried entering the lottery. They used to have a lottery back in the day. They don't have that anymore. I entered the lottery, I think, 2 times and didn't get in. And then I finally decided, you know what? Even if I got in, even if I, got in on a lottery, that I wouldn't do it, that I really wanted to qualify. And then, of course, the very next year I qualified, so I got in. So it's more fulfilling, I think, that way. Okay, so 2010 was the first year I got in, and here's how I did it. Up to that point, I had done 2 full Ironman events. My first one was Ironman Coeur d'Alene in 2008, and I also did the Ironman Arizona in 2000. I think that was 2008 as well. And then I did a bunch of 70.3s, including the one in Hawaii, Honu. And then finally in 2010, I did Ironman Honu, and I ended up in 3rd place. So there you go with the roll down. The first place guy was a guy that some people, at least in my age group, will know, a guy named Kevin Moats, who actually eventually got thrown out of the sport for doping. But rest in peace, Kevin. He passed away, I think, 2 years ago now from melanoma. But he finished first in that race. And then the second place guy was a Hawaiian resident. They had a special program for Hawaiian residents. So he already had his spot as a Hawaii Islander, so it rolled down to me. It was an incredible time. It was fun because I had a friend with me and my son was with me, and it was just a blast. I missed the Ironman World Championships in 2011 and 2012, and you might think, well, how did you get it in 2010 and then miss 2 years? Well, the fact is that I don't want to bag on anybody, but I had signed up with a coach, and the coaching program I was on wasn't meant for me. I had a couple friends that had a lot of success with it, but I've got a very high heart rate, and that whole math stuff did not work for me. And I think that's frankly the reason why I didn't make it in 2011 and 2012. So I gave up that coaching program and worked with some other coaches, and eventually got in again in 2013. Now, 2013 was probably the high watermark for me in my triathlon career. I did races of all distances, and I pretty much podiumed at everything that I did that year, but I worked my tail off in 2013. From the period of 2011 through 2013, I raced 5 70.3s, and I signed up for 7 full Ironmans from 2011 to 13, but only actually finished 5 of them. Get into that in a second. I dropped from Ironman St. George because after the bike, I didn't have a particularly good bike there. It's a hilly course. And at that time, I wasn't a very strong cyclist. So after one loop, it was a 2-loop run. On the second loop, I discovered I was in 7th place and falling back further. So I just pulled out and saved it because I ended up going to the Hanu half Ironman just a few weeks after that. So it's like, I'm not going to get my spot here. I'm just going to wait and try again at Hanu. And the other one was Lake Tahoe. And because I qualified prior to that race, I didn't even go to Lake Tahoe, which was a bit of a nightmare of a race. And I'm frankly glad that I missed it. That was the year that was so freezing cold that a lot of people ended up with hypothermia. So and then in 2013, I ended up winning Ironman Los Cabos, and that was a very hot race, very long race, but I won that one, and that's how I qualified in 2013. And then, as luck would have it, I qualified the next 3 years, 2014, 15, and 16, all 3 years qualifying at Ironman Arizona. Now that race really suits me very well. The time of year that it is, like in November, it's not particularly hot. None of the days that I raced it on were particularly hot. By the way, I did Ironman Arizona a total of 7 times, qualified 3 times out of those 7. But in 2014, I qualified, finished second to a great triathlete, and especially a great runner, Paul Bakerman. There were 2 slots, so I got the second slot. 2015, pretty much repeated the same thing. And this other little tidbit should give you some hope, depending on where you're at in your age group. I actually was 59 that year that I qualified, 2014. 2014, I was 59 years old, but I qualified for Kona for 2015. Finished second again to Paul Bakerman, but finishing at the top of your age group was something pretty tough to do when you get up into your 50s and 60s. So that was pretty amazing. And then 2016, again, finished second, this time to a guy named Bill Ankley out of Colorado, another great triathlete. No shame in finishing second to him. He had a great race. And that was my last time and frankly, my last attempt to do the Ironman World Championships. So is it possible for you to qualify for the Ironman World Championships? I don't know. Maybe. Are you super fit? You better be. If you're not good at swim, bike, and run, you won't get there. If you're a 220, swimmer, in other words, if you can't finish the swim before 2 hours and 20 minutes, chances are, no matter how good your bike and run are, you're not going to qualify. So you've got to be good at all 3. You don't have to be great at all 3. I'm certainly not great at any of the 3. I'm just good at all 3. So got to be super fit, got to be super dedicated. You got to be willing to make sacrifices in your life. You're going to have to give up something in your life in order to get the training and all the other stuff in. And then, do you have a super coach? As I mentioned, I missed qualifying for 2 years, and I don't blame that on my dedication because I think I was very dedicated during those years. I just think I got some bad coaching. So you got to have a super coach. And if you're looking for a coach, guess what? Here's my commercial. Free 14-day trial of TriTipz with me personally coaching you. No credit card needed. Sign up with the links in the show notes. And then after that time, either drop, no hard feelings, or continue on with any 6 options from $14.99 to $450 per month. Go to wisecoaching.com, WIISE coaching.com. Please like and subscribe and also share this video with your friends. I really appreciate it. And I'll see you at the races.